Buzz provides the ability to create assessments or quizzes on the platform. You're going to want to enter into a course and then go to the curriculum map. From the curriculum map, you're going to want to open a folder, and then from within a folder, you're going to want to add a new item. And that new item is going to be an assessment. Something important to consider is having standards available for your quiz or assessment. I can come in here and add additional outcomes or filter them from the entire course. We'll talk about how standards work later, but it's important to have some standards aligned to the assessment, which would be inherited from the folder. I'm going to go ahead and double click on a pre-existing quiz just to kind of explain how these are set up. First of all, you're going to give it a title. You're going to then give it some instructions. And then based upon those instructions, you're going to have potentially a due date. We'll talk more about the gradebook settings later. The important thing is to look at the assessment settings. You have a series of default assessment settings that you can choose, which change the settings below. And you can play through those to look how those settings change, but I'm going to just explain them as they move along. First off, you have the default score. In this case, each question is worth 1 point, and those question values can be altered once you start adding questions. You can determine how many questions per page. If you leave this empty, all the questions will be presented in one long assessment. You can determine how long the quiz should take by putting in the maximum amount of time in minutes for this quiz. You can also determine the number of attempts that you allow. Remember that you can always, from the grading panel, allow a retry. You also determine what score you're going to keep, whether it's average, highest, last, etc. You can also have server-side graded and client-side graded, but the most important one in this drop-down is if you want it password protected. Then you could provide it a password and you'd be good to go. There are a number of options that we'll explain here. You can allow the students to save and continue their assessments at a later point. You also can allow them to print their quiz. So, for instance, it may be used for a study sheet. You can randomize the question order, and you can also randomize the answers inside each question. You can require that all questions be answered before the quiz can be submitted. You can hide the back button if you don't want the students to go back a question. You can also set up formative assessments. Formative assessments are used primarily for summer school or a pretest that shows how much the student knows before they actually work their way through the course material. And there are certain specific behaviors that occur there. You can also do remediation assessments that show links back to content that's aligned to the same outcomes as the question. And then you can also auto start the quiz if you want. There are a number of settings regarding how you want the display results to be. There's also review settings concerning how you want to display the question results, the student answers, scores, correct answers, correct choices, and feedback. Your options are always never, after the minimum number of attempts, when correct, after the due date or visibility date. You can also set up question pools, and you can pull an explicit number of questions based upon question types or groups or learning competencies that are aligned to the quiz. We'll look at how to create questions in the following videos.